Insurance brokers and bankers can kiss goodbye to junkets and bonuses as the government moves to ban sales-based incentives. The Commerce and Consumer Affairs Minister, Kris Faafoi, announced stricter controls on banks and insurers today in the wake of scathing reviews by the Reserve Bank and the Financial Markets Authority. The financial services sector and the National Party are broadly supportive of the changes, but say the devil will be in the detail. Here's our political reporter, Jo Moir.
The government is calling time on banking and insurance staff being incentivised with overseas trips in exchange for selling policies their customers don't need. Mr Faafoi says junkets or bonuses lead sales staff to pressure customers into buying unsuitable products, such as policies they can never claim on.
The days of the trips to Rome are gone. If you sell 10 policies, and that practice needed to be long gone many years ago.
The Insurance Council of New Zealand Chief Executive, Tim Grafton, says it's about time the playing field was levelled.
One of the challenges for the sector has been what we describe as first mover disadvantage. So the first company to withdraw that kind of incentive, say for an intermediary who's selling products on their behalf, might mean that their business is taken elsewhere. So applying the law to this and prohibiting that behaviour puts everybody on a level playing field and avoids that problem.
Mr Faafoi has already briefly met with the opposition Commerce and Consumer Affairs spokesperson, Brett Hudson, who is happy to work with the government on the recommendations. He warns, though, that other industries will continue to be free to carry on incentivised sales behaviour.
I would note that these sorts of offers exist in other industries, so for many years tradespeople have operated under very similar incentives, and I believe still do.
Other new measures include stricter controls backed by stronger enforcement tools for the FMA to direct licensed institutions to change behaviour, improve their systems, as well as suspend or vary the conditions of a licence. Mr Faafoi says that puts the hard word on the banking and insurance sectors to clean up their act or risk being shut down.
But I think it's pretty inherent now on the banks, on the insurance sector and the wider finance sector now, that they've been given a message that if they don't clean up their act to make sure that they're working in the best interests of consumers and their customers, then their licence will be at stake.
While Mr Hudson says he can fundamentally see why there should be an increased level of scrutiny, it will come down to whether that scrutiny should have stopped at transparency or is right to go all the way to a ban. Mr Faafoi has described today's announcement as being immediate action to prevent and penalise poor conduct, rather than initiating a further inquiry into the sector, such as the Royal Commission some called for. Mr Hudson says the need for a Royal Commission has already been ruled out.
Well, I think in fairness, the regulators have determined that that's not a necessary step, but they've also determined that some additional scrutiny is required. And as I say, we'll go through the detail, but in general principle, there's not a lot, I think, that we would object to.
The Bankers Association, the Financial Services Council and Tower Insurance have all endorsed the ban on sales incentives based on volume or value targets. Mr Faafoi expects the new legislation to be introduced by the end of the year, followed by a select committee process and hopefully new law in place before the election next year. From Parliament for Checkpoint, Jo Moir.